Hello and welcome to On the Prowl, presented by Cardiac Cats. I'm your host, Jacob Shorba, and today I was going to be joined by my brother, but I've actually got another guy on 10 minutes notice in here. You'll remember him if you've watched this podcast before, but it's Griffin Fisher, fan of the Kansas City Chiefs. We don't agree with that, but we still love them all the same. So he's going to be on here today with us. We're going to be talking about the draft, going to talk about some NFL news, and really answer you guys' questions. So how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Playing some games. Now I'm on a stream, so
Yeah,
I'm ready.
for any of you gamers out there, I just pulled them off of Phasmophobia 10 minutes ago, so yeah, it's very sad. I'm sure you'd rather be playing that. But yeah, so I was going to have my brother on here, but he's got to do some yard work this morning, so called a little bit of an audible before.
Go
Kind of
kill.
our little T formation here. But yeah, we've got some stuff to talk about. We've got 8 days until the draft. Griffin's going to be out with me at the draft as well, with his people in Kansas City. And probably be on some of our, I don't know if we'll do live streams or what we'll do exactly, but he'll probably be in some of the content that week because we'll be watching it together and hopefully covering stuff.
Hopefully covering happy stuff.
Yeah, happy stuff, and not like Brian Brissy goes to Jacksonville at 24 and Brian Branch falls to the Chiefs at 31. Something like that. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But we've got news around the NFL. We've got things that have been going on. A lot of draft talk. A lot of these, I guess, reports that you don't know whether they're legit or not. You get things like, for example, the Texans. They don't want C.J. Stroud. They want Bryce Young. They're not going to get him, and they're going to trade out of the pick. You hear things like, for example, the Titans interested in Trey Lance, thinking about trading up to the third pick maybe. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. You even had a trade with Allen Robinson yesterday to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That was a weird one.
Yeah, for a 7th rounder.
Yeah, it wasn't. I think both teams got a 7. It seemed like the Rams just gave him away, basically.
Pretty much. And so they gave him I think $5 million that they have to pay on Allen Robinson, but the Rams take the rest of it. So kind of a ridiculous trade there. Not exactly ideal in my opinion, but
I like it from the Steelers' point of view.
Yeah, the winning side.
I'm sure Steelers fans are pretty happy.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I'd be thrilled. Although I will say, the one thing that kind of sucks from that is that I've mentioned it a couple times in the last week. I was really hoping for Pittsburgh that they would be interested in Jordan Addison because he played with Kenny Pickett in college, and you've seen a lot of teams pair up these quarterback wide receiver duos from college and seen success.
It works out, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll do that now because he might not even start on that team. I mean, if you got Allen Robinson, Deontay Johnson, and George Pickens, or Hall of Famer from last year's draft, it really kind of confuses that whole situation.
Now it's pretty rare they're actually going to get him.
Yeah, and I wanted them to potentially be a trade partner for Jacksonville because I felt like that could happen. Say they want to move up to 24 in front of the Giants who are interested in Addison, go get their guy and trade a good haul of picks. But there's other teams you could always trade with. But yeah, that was big news as far as trades. We've also had other guys kind of on the block. There was DeAndre Hopkins this last month or two, and he had the video he put out the other day where they were asking him oh, would you want to play for this team? And he had to give facial expression reactions to it, and he pretty much said through that he wants to play for the Bills or Chiefs, ideally. Not shocking. But on the air side,
thought he said it looked like he enjoyed the Chiefs a little bit more.
I would actually agree. Yeah, I would not want to be in Buffalo right now. That'd be the last place on this earth I'd want to be in. But other than Arizona. But because we're talking about two guys coming from that team. But the other guy from them was Budda Baker. And Baker's been talked about to a lot of different teams. The Eagles is the one that's gaining steam right now, and I think a ton of that is just hype because people want to see the Eagles go all out again. And the other two teams, the other two AFC division winners, you've got the Jaguars and you've also got the Cincinnati Bengals. So could be some interesting potential moves there. I mean, I'd love him in Jacksonville, and I'm sure you'd love DeAndre
Yeah.
Hopkins in Kansas City. So
I
you
would
have
like
a
either one
receiver.
of them in Kansas City, but one of them's at least more of a realistic option,
Yeah,
considering that he showed interest towards Kansas City.
yeah, I think he would want to go there. It's just a question of like, how do you guys deal with the cap for that? Because cap space is probably the bigger issue.
And I do not know because the only option the Chiefs really had left was extend Chris Jones, and they've basically said that they're not going to. Not yet, at least. Whenever Brett Veach got asked that question, the general manager of the Chiefs, he just basically responded with like, "Yeah, we're looking at that down the road." So I don't know where they'd possibly get money from.
Yeah, it doesn't make a ton of sense to do it this year unless they want to go make a big move for a DeAndre Hopkins, which they would pay him. I think it's like 12 million this year, something like that. So they could extend Chris Jones and make that kind of move, but you'd kind of rather do that next offseason. And you have the small cap hit then, you have more money available. Because we've kind of thought about that with like Evan Ingram, for example. Like, do you want to extend him this offseason and change not only that, but change the cap number this year? Or would you rather, do the opposite of that and have a small cap number next offseason and have more money to spend then? So I'm kind of, I don't know, with Chris Jones, like, you guys should probably kind of stay put at this point. If you get DeAndre Hopkins, have the Cardinals take on money,
Okay,
send him a
yeah.
pick. Yeah, that's what I would do. That's why I went with Buda Baker. I want them to take on money if they make that kind of move.
So that the moves where the Jaguars or the Chiefs make all the good stuff from it, and the Cardinals suffer.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, it's like for Arizona, is there any scenario where they're a winning team next year?
No,
Yeah, unfortunately, it's
literally
a no.
zero.
Geno Smith dies the first game. Matthew
The whole
Stafford
division has to
retires.
implode.
Baker Mayfield comes back, which that might actually be a good thing. Um, and then
Oh, he's
what
on the
the
Bucks now, isn't he?
49ers brought, yeah, I think so.
He's their starting guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the
He's getting
starter.
one
They
more
got him,
shot.
Kyle Trask, and they've got who's their other guy? It's well, it's gonna be Hendon Hooker, but we just gotta wait until after draft day. Yeah, and Ron's talking about DeAndre Hopkins here. Yeah, I don't think we have the money to afford him. Like, or we could, but do we want to? Because you're not really using Zay Jones much then. It doesn't make much sense. There's better things they can do with that, like go after Buda Baker. But for Kansas City, like, yeah, that's a pretty clear move for them to go make. That would make a lot of sense.
I don't think there's any team that would hate having DeAndre Hopkins, but yeah, it's just that he said he didn't want to cost the team a lot of money, but the Cardinals would still have to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you could get him to take on like most of that salary and you send like a fifth, sure, that's great. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I really doubt that. He might even get released at this point.
Sign a
Veteran
$1 million
minimum.
a year. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd take that.
that would be a heck of a move. I would definitely be on board for that if it was the Jaguars, not the Chiefs. If it was the Chiefs, then I'd call collusion. Like the Lions and Vikings trading in the draft last year. One of the worst trades I've ever
That
seen.
was that was disgusting. I mean,
Yeah,
I guess it worked out in the end for both sides, but
I
I
don't know,
could
man.
never imagine a rival being traded or trading with a rival like that.
They were talking now about the Texans and Colts trading at 2-4, which
I
is
mean,
so dumb. Like, because if you're the Texans and you give the Colts their quarterback there, and that quarterback is good, you're
yeah,
never going to hear the end of that. That's
yeah, I
just it's
see
too
that. You
risky.
can't make
Give it
that
to
trade.
another team. Screw your division opponent over and laugh at them. I
Yeah, that's you can't make that trade. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
That is
it's
that
too
is too
risky.
risky.
Way too risky. Like, you would rather, if you're the Texans, go trade that to like the Raiders. Although I know you hate that, but that would make way more sense. Go to a Raiders, or maybe if Seattle or Detroit wants to get their quarterback of the future and doesn't really believe in their guy for the long haul, you make that kind of move. Now, as far as Buda Baker and the comment here from Greek Giant, I don't know if he goes for 2.6. I don't think he's going to go for that low of a price because there's going to be an actual market for this guy because he is one of the best players in the NFL. I mean, you look at the NFL players list for like top 100 each season voted on by the players. He's always in that list. He's a Pro Bowler consistently every season. Like I think probably a third or a second. Maybe
I
more.
do think defenders are going pretty cheap right now. The game is so offense heavy right now that when you see trades for big defensive key players, it's usually not too expensive. I don't think it's going to be 2.6, but I think a lower third could probably do it.
Yeah, and that's what we have. I hope they would accept that because that'd be a fantastic trade. One thing I will say though, like if you go after a Buda Baker, or you go after, and we'll talk about him here a little bit, Brian Branch, just a really good slot corner. I feel like if you do that, it's you still have to address cornerback because you don't have that outside guy. Like your backup is Trey Herndon, or it's Monteric Brown, who, if you don't know that name, Griffin, he's a 6th-round pick from last year, or 7th-rounder, somewhere around there. He played against you guys in Week 10, didn't do too hot. So like those are your options because I don't think you're starting Branch outside, you're not starting Baker outside, so it's kind of a weird situation where they almost have to double dip if they go for one of these really good safeties that's either on the market or in the draft.
Yeah. I do see. I do like the idea of the Jaguars trading back with the Chiefs.
I would like that if you guys didn't land a great player. Like
I'd like
if you
it
went for Brian Brissy there and he's
just from being a
Kenny Gainwell.
fan of the hometown team there. I would love to see a trade up.
Yeah, that would be smart. But at the same time, what better way to end like draft night for you guys than doing the like tomahawk chop at the very end of the draft and everyone has
Is
to
that
go home
okay?
on that. That's the
Yeah,
problem with that. That's why I think you stay put.
I do. Okay, you convinced me.
Yeah, the end. Conversation over there. I
But it
would
is smart. I
be
think the Jaguars could trade back, though. I think that is a smart move they could do.
I would probably trade back unless you've got either like one player left on the board you really like at 24 and like not a whole lot of options, or you consider trading up if a really good name's falling. Because I'd give up a third to go move up for someone. Like, say you go after, say Devon Witherspoon doesn't go as high as we expect, right? Like, it's very unlikely, but it's possible you have a player that falls like that. And so I would definitely consider a move like that. But trading back would be really nice just to get extra picks. And we've seen this is for both our teams, because for the Chiefs, like they've been very successful here recently too, drafting on day 2, day 3, all those time periods. Like that's where they've been the best.
Yeah, I mean, both quarterbacks and both teams have demonstrated they can pick up stars later in the draft.
Yeah, they've done pretty good with the depth, and that's part of like why I'm kind of excited for one of our guys that hasn't really got to play a whole lot, Jordan Smith. He was one of our selections when Urban Meyer was drafting, because that whole draft class they brought in is really like the nucleus of this team at this point. Because you've got um, Trevor Lawrence, obviously, right? Travis Etienne ended up actually being a good pick at 25th overall, I would argue. Tyson Campbell is one of the better cornerbacks in the league, one of the best at this point. Walker Little's a starting tackle. And then Andre Sisco's a good safety. After that, you got like Jay Tufele. They didn't keep him, but he went to the Bengals and actually started for them. And then after that, it's Jordan Smith, who we hope is going to be really good. So it's got me kind of excited for that. And I think with Bulky, I think he can hit around that range because he was a part of those draft classes. And even like the 3rd round this last year where they were picking, it didn't make sense to pick up Chad Muma and get another linebacker, but I still think he's a solid player for that point. And Luke Fortner was a good center. Not a Creed Humphrey, but good center. You guys are like the masterminds of interior offensive line at this point.
Oh yeah, I love the interior offensive line.
Just tackle's a bit of a different conversation.
Considering that the Chiefs don't even know who their right tackle is, and apparently their left tackle's a man who doesn't play left tackle.
Yeah, I would be very thrilled if I got to see him get pancaked in Jacksonville this year by like Josh Allen, just on one play. That would feel really good as a fan, after he just left without saying anything to anyone and just going to like the biggest rival we're gonna have the next 5 to 10 years. We expect. It's sad, but
I have a
Arden
sense you
Key
don't
did
like the guy
worse.
anymore.
I don't hate him, but I'm not too thrilled with him at this point. It's just, and maybe he said something like on a social media platform I don't follow, but he just seemed very keen to like move on, and that was sort of bizarre to me. But Arden Key did worse, so I can't even be that mad at at Jawan Taylor for that. So let's talk about some of this other news. Let's talk about some quarterbacks maybe, because there's four guys. Some people want to say five, with like Hendon Hooker, but there's going to be four guys who are going in the first round. Some very interesting prospects and potentially good players, but there's really not a whole lot of consensus on like where these guys are going, because Bryce Young probably going number one overall. He canceled all his like pre-draft visits with teams. You expect him to go to Carolina, but now there's this talk about Houston. They don't want C.J. Stroud. They don't want any of these other guys. They are maybe going to go get like Will Anderson. I mean, you think that's full of crap, or you think that's legit? Like, where do you kind of stand on that? And do you think they're right if they don't want to get him?
I kind of think the first few teams, probably the first. I don't see any more big trades happening in the first big picks. I don't think it's happening. I think they're getting who's there. So if the Texans, yeah, Bryce Young's going one, I think, but I can't comment on the Texans.
Yeah. So this is my opinion on it, and it only works if you actually get the first overall pick next year. But I would so much rather like trade capital to acquire picks in the future and just tank this next year and go get a Caleb Williams rather than bank everything on CJ Stroud, who you feel like at best is like a top 10 cornerback or sorry, quarterback, right? Like that's the ceiling for him that you see. Um, I would consider Anthony Richardson. He would be the one guy like I would 100% understand, and someone's got to pick all these guys, right? But Richardson's ceiling is so ridiculous that like if I'm New England and I'm sitting, what are they, like 14th in the draft, I would heavily
Yeah,
consider giving up a future first and other picks to move up for that kind of selection, because that's the kind of coach that you would expect could maybe turn him into something.
I think
You
the
know?
Commanders should get him. I think Eric Bieniemy should have
Oh
a shot
yeah,
with him.
that would actually be pretty good. I could trust that, and I think they need a quarterback at this point. They've got to get someone because they've been sticking around with these guys who are not long term answers for so long, and they've said they like Sam Howell and they're gonna have him start this year, but I don't know if I fully buy that.
No, Eric Bieniemy, you have the offensive coordinator now. You need to go and actually get a guy and see if he can train him up.
Yeah, and man, you also got other tempting options for them too, because you've got like Dalton Kincaid in the first round. They compare to Travis Kelsey. Not saying he's as good, but he's a similar kind of player, and you get that kind of guy in your offense. Like they're going to be a really interesting team to watch, and also for Jacksonville, because a lot of the players they could go target are the same ones that we're helping fall to 24. Because you've got Deontay Banks, Brian Branch, Dalton Kincaid. Just big names to talk about that a lot of people generally like. Maybe not Kincaid as much, but Branch and Banks are pretty big in the community right now. Where do you think that these other guys land? Like, you think there's any teams that are gonna like trade up for someone, or it's just gonna stay kind of put where it is right now?
Honestly, your division has three other teams who could all want a quarterback, I feel. The Titans,
100%.
the least of them, but the Texans and Colts are desperate for a quarterback.
The
The
Titans,
Patriots, but I don't think they're going to do it this year. I think they are going to try to stick with Jones one more year, even though it's getting kind of hot there, it sounds like. Bill Belichick's a little upset about what Jones said about Patricia last year.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't know if there's any other. Yeah, I can't think of another team. I'm sure there is. I think there might be a big trade for a quarterback. Not one of the first ones, but uh, later on.
I could see a team moving up for Richardson. I think he's like the one quarterback he would do it for. Now, I will say, you say the Titans are the ones who want one the least. We're almost getting to the point to where if you like genuinely believe all the news that's coming out around the NFL, that the Titans want a quarterback worse than the Texans
They
because they're
should
the
be getting
ones who are.
Lamar.
Well, they should if they were smart.
That's what I've said multiple times. Even one of my friends who's a Titans fan, I've told them they should get Lamar. That would not instantly fix all their issues, but they stay competitive at the very least.
Yeah, I mean their offensive line would get them killed by week 7, but they would be pretty good the first 6 weeks of the
Yeah, they
season.
might they might win 5 of those games.
They might be like one game within Jacksonville. That would be pretty cool. And it's Malik Willis time again. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't get the whole Lamar thing. I don't get why people don't want to pursue him, especially the Falcons.
I understand it is a lot of money, but seeing the team's reactions to Lamar is really weird. They're acting as if people like they're shopping Mac Jones or frickin' Tannehill. They're shopping an MVP who has proven that he can take teams to the playoffs. I don't get it.
Yeah, the claim I've heard, and this is what the Falcons owner I believe said, because they were all trying to kind of make up their excuses for why they're not doing it, even though we kind of
Why they're
know
not
it's
trying to build a winning organization.
yeah, it's full of crap. But they were talking about how they didn't want to pursue him because he was injured all the time. Like he was an injury concern, and the way he plays the game is dangerous. It's like, yeah, it's also dangerous for the other side, when they lose because they can't cover him. When they have to quarterback spy, people are open. Like this guy can both run and throw the ball. He's like Justin Fields if he could pass the ball. I mean, can you imagine that?
You're still so hard on Justin Fields.
Yeah, because he sucks as a
I get
quarterback,
it.
not as a running back. He's great as that, right? But
I'm obviously higher on him. I think he can develop into a pretty good player. And I don't fault the Bears fans for being happy. That's how I see it. But
yeah, I'm
those
happy
teams should
for
take
him.
a one team should take a chance on Lamar. And I do 100% agree with Greek Giant in the comments there. I am 100% on Mac Jones' side of that.
Yeah.
But sure, that offense was disgusting to watch. That was awful. You could just tell. It felt like the Patriots weren't even trying to win.
It's like
So,
if you still have like the Chiefs kind of like offensive construction, right, with like the random players, but they don't have any of the stars and they don't have an offensive minded coach like Andy Reid. So they're just a complete mess. And they don't have the quarterback, obviously, like
so it's like
at
if
that
Matt
level.
Nagy goes up to coach.
Yeah. You're excited for that though, aren't you?
I'm excited for Matt Nagy as offensive coordinator. I don't think he can be as overwhelmed there. If he went to coach, I would be a little worried. Unless obviously like develops very well for the next few years while Andy Reid's still here.
Yeah, he's gonna need a Trent Baalke sort of revival there. He's gonna need like the greatest season of coaching ever. I don't
But
know. He could
yeah,
do it.
no, Patricia was bad.
Yeah,
You saw
Patricia
that
is
in
so
Detroit too.
overrated. And that team has such a problem with like this. It's not simony. It's what's the word for it? Like hiring people inside of your family and like people you know closely. Someone at the nepotism, right?
Yeah,
It's something
I
like that.
think you're right.
That's like the Patriot way at this point. It's not winning Super Bowls with
They
Tom
still
Brady.
act
It's just
like they have Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. That's what they make their moves like, as if that they already have like the offense figured out. It is baffling. They still haven't given up on the fact that their dynasty ended like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's
They're
been a
still
while.
holding on to it, and they're just losing because of it.
Yeah, I'm cool with it though. I like watching the Patriots lose.
Oh yeah, I have no issue with it at all.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
It's just baffling how apparently one of the greatest coaches of all time is mismanaging that so bad.
Yeah, I don't think he's as good as people think he is.
I
If I'm
think
gonna be
he's
completely
by
honest, like
far the
he's
best
good, but
defensive-minded coach of all time. But
defense.
I think, yeah, but uh, yeah, I can't consider him better than Andy, and I'm biased because I'm a Chiefs fan. But
I agree though.
I can't. Andy Reid at this point, I think he needs to get a couple more rings too to cement it. But I think
No, he
Andy
doesn't.
Reid has a legit argument.
Yeah, Andy Reid. I think you just see how good of a
At
coach
least
he
in the
is in
modern era,
college.
because there's older coaches too that are really good.
For sure, but the way he coaches up players, like even with your receiving core right now, like as barren of a wasteland as it seems, and if you want it in for our Jaguars fans here, which is pretty much everyone, if you want their Chiefs receiving core in Jaguars terms, it's basically if Zay Jones was surrounded by like a ton of like random guys from the draft that people thought could be elite but like hadn't proved it yet. But they're gonna make that good because they've got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's basically Zay Jones, Justin Ross, who we all wanted last year as a UDFA, ultimately didn't get him, but he's got like the spinal injury right now. He's got all these concerns there, but
Yeah,
he
but in
played great in
practice with
college for a
Mahomes, he
year or
looked
two.
great.
He did, man. That was a those catches. Like, I mean, I couldn't do
Mahomes said
that.
he was impressed with him.
I'm not
Mahomes would never
100% on
lie.
that. Yeah, I don't feel like Mahomes would say he's disappointed in a player, to be fair. But just end the guy's career on the moment. Oh, Mahomes didn't like you. You're
Oh,
done.
wait, Chiefs have John Ross,
Yeah, they got John
a player
Ross,
taken before Mahomes.
Kadarius Toney,
He's
which
done some things,
he's the one I understand. Like, although he had 200 yards last year.
but that's a testament to Andy Reid, though.
Yeah,
Also,
it
Kadarius
all
Toney
is.
instantly coming in and being able to adapt to an offense pretty quickly, not to a high usage, but being able to get touchdowns.
He's a good
I mean,
offensive
I
weapon.
got to see his first touchdown. It was a great moment.
I got to see Devin Lloyd's first pick. That was great. I got to see Doug Pearson's first win, Doug Pearson's first playoff win with the Jaguars, all that stuff. But yeah,
Doug Pearson's
Kadarius
first
Toney could
playoff
be.
loss with the Jaguars.
Shut up.
I'm sorry.
You're gonna pay someday, 50 years from now. Once
When
Mahomes is like
Mahomes
literally,
retires,
no, he's not retired. He's literally dead.
he's got to be gone.
Yeah, gone forever.
It does feel, and I know Jaguars fans don't want to hear this, but it does feel like that Lawrence is going to be like Manning to Mahomes, like Brady, to where he's going to
Mm,
have to play against him for multiple years before he gets the best of him.
you know, Manning wasn't he like 3-1 in AFC Championship games against Brady?
Yeah, but it took him a long time. He had a long
But he
stretch
was
where
three
he
and one
couldn't get
against him.
over the hump.
I'm cool with that.
Well, as long as the Chiefs get like 3 more rings before that gets to that phase, I'm fine with that too.
No, no, I don't think so. Yeah, and the difference too in our teams, like we talked a little bit about divisions here, mainly about the AFC South, but like your division has actually got like decent teams, some or a decent team, right? But they're like broken. I mean, they're never going to be great. And we're talking about the Chargers, obviously, because we broke them last year. The greatest moment ever, like especially with how much that team brags. We were just looking at before the stream this morning, just going through the Chargers social media throughout the game. It is a fantastic read. If you just want to like smile at some point in your day, just go read it. There's like all these posts about all the interceptions and stuff, and then it just goes dead silent. Like
For
right
three
around the
days.
third quarter, yeah, that's final. They lose, and 3 days later, it's just we fired these two guys. It's fantastic, but you've got like one good team that's never going to challenge you on the big stage. They'll challenge you on the small stage. And then you've got the Raiders who are broken, the Broncos who are broken. Our division, everyone's broken, but they can at least get better. Maybe the Titans are farther away, but they still just have like 1 year to rebuild, so not a huge issue. Oh, were you at the game in, was it week 6, Greek Giant? I'm assuming that's the one you're talking about, because that was painful watching Shaquille Griffin get burnt like 20 times. That game was like kind of where I knew the season was going south for a little bit. But we're gonna have a little bit shorter of an episode today, just because I had to call Griffin on late, and so we didn't have a ton of time to prepare. And I've also got class here shortly.
And I'm still on a Super
boy.
Bowl high. I haven't barely looked at football.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, that's a terrible way to celebrate your birthday, man. I'm so sorry. That's awful.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's that's
Yeah.
rough.
Pat McAfee is a very intense human being. I would not want to be 20 feet away from him. I'd like to be like 26
A
away
YouTube.
from him.
I like being a YouTube screen away from him.
Yeah, that's fun. It's fun to listen to him, especially when they lose against the Jaguars in week 18, you know. That's
Yeah,
I forget
it. I keep forgetting he's a Colts fan.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll talk about some draft targets. You guys, if you want to mention some players in here, we'll talk about them a little bit. But both our teams going to be drafting late in the draft this year. It's going to be like 24, 31. You know, potentially going to trade around. I think you guys are definitely a trade up candidate for sure. I don't think you're trading back just because like you're going to want to at least draft in the first round when it's in your city.
Yeah, they trade back. I'm pretty sure that all of Kansas City would destroy Union Station where the draft is.
They would be mad even if you got like 3 first rounders from the Arizona Cardinals. Like, why'd you do that? Even though you're going to go get like every franchise quarterback the next 3 years and just auction them off for a premium. Should be amazing.
My dad started to mention this, which is kind of random, but the Patriots would always get players and they'd auction them off like way higher because they played with Brady and Brady was able to elevate them to a higher level. The Chiefs have already like started to get to that point too.
They just aren't auctioning them off.
No, they're just letting them get old, but it will get to that point now that they've kind of built up a young team where it's going to start auctioning off. Like Shane Buechele here in like 3 years, like sit behind Mahomes. Matt Castle did. If Mahomes gets hurt and he's been decently,
Blaine Gabbert's starting for you guys. It's gonna happen.
Well, either way, oh no, he can't. Yeah, we won't be trading away Blaine Gabbert because he's old.
Yeah, he's got a Super Bowl ring already. He's gonna probably have 2 by the end of his career. Unfortunately,
gosh,
none of them with the Jaguars.
If he stayed in Kansas City for like 3 or 4 years, I'd assume he gets one more. They're still on a high note right now.
Imagine telling one of us like 10 years ago when Blaine Gabbert was like going to the team, like, yeah, man, he's gonna win 2 Super Bowls, but both of them are gonna be with different teams. Just all the disappointment from that be very overwhelming.
Won't be on the Jaguars at all.
Yeah, very, very unfortunate. Which, I mean, he's got to win the second one, right? But I don't think that's too out of the cards. I think he'll kind of stick around there for a while, especially if Mahomes magically goes down with an ankle injury.
I don't know if he can
championship game against Jacksonville.
Yeah, but the Chiefs' other backup quarterback, Shane Buechele, they were really high on him. They didn't let him go to practice squad the whole season, even though he was a third quarterback on the roster because they didn't want anyone else to get him. They are decently high on him. He might beat out, and I don't know if he will because Andy Reid loves veteran, older backup quarterbacks. This is kind of his thing. But I wouldn't be too surprised if they stick with the younger guy.
I wouldn't be either, but you're also underestimating the power of Blaine Gabbert.
And he's not bad.
He's going to offer you so much, though. Like, if Mahomes goes down in a game against Jacksonville, it's literally over for the Jaguars because that dude's going to come in and set, like, the single game, like, passing record in 3 quarters.
He's not terrible either. All time, he has more touchdowns than interceptions. That's pretty rare for a backup, at least.
He's very mid. Less than mid.
I mean, I'll take that for a backup, though. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Chad Henne was very mid.
Yeah, he was other than the
The
divisional
one
round,
drive
unfortunately, which should have been intercepted right at the start. That's the
right
stupid part.
away.
Yeah,
That game might end there.
no, it wouldn't. No,
Well,
that
that
penalty
would, I
flag
mean,
came in.
the chances of the Jaguars winning there would have been way higher. I
Yeah,
wouldn't have felt great about that. Seeing the Chiefs score on that drive still is what made me feel optimistic as a Chiefs fan. But yeah, if they hadn't scored in that, I would have been pretty rough off. I know you didn't feel great after them scoring because it's like, wow, they just let the backup quarterback score.
well, it got rid of the whole excuse of like, oh yeah, they just won because Mahomes went down. If they won the game, like that was dead because he literally got outperformed by Chad Henne in that game. Like statistically, Henne played way better. But yeah, so we're getting a little off topic there, but that's completely fine. That's what we do. We are going to talk about these draft selections. I know you've got a couple guys you like at 31. It's a limited list, but still a good list of players, getting a mountain of a man at right tackle. But for the Jaguars, we're getting asked here like what they go after. And I'll ask for your opinion on this just as general positions and stuff. They've got a lot of ways they can go because they could say, let's go get a guard and upgrade that. Let's make the run game good. Let's get in there tight end. Maybe we want a cornerback, a safety, or another edge. Like, what do you think for Jacksonville is the best move for the team to be even more competitive?
In general, I would say defense. But if I'm going position, I do think quarterback. I think in both the Chiefs games we watched in person, it just felt like your defense couldn't keep up with the Chiefs offense that really was just Mahomes and Kelsey. So I do think you got to improve your secondary.
Yeah, I think the slot corner was an issue in those games, and then it was also the linebacker play, which Aluakon was fine, but it was really just having these young guys having to figure out a freaking Andy Reid offense their first year, and it was a death sentence for them, unfortunately, and they were already struggling before those games. It's like it is in-house improvement that helps with that, but cornerback would be easily I think like the one you could argue for the most as far as the biggest need for this team right now, as far as like talent acquisition, because you could have players step up at these other positions, like the pass rush, someone could get better, the offensive line, Barch could break out this year, but you're not expecting Trey Herndon to have like the year of his life at slot corner. At least I don't think anyone's going to say that. So that would probably make the most sense. Getting like a Deontay Banks, a Cam Smith, someone like that. Although people have soured on Cam Smith for whatever reason recently, but that's
There's
not
a
the.
lot of players, and I'm not even super knowledgeable on the draft, but I've seen a lot of players who were supposed to go early in the draft just drop off for the first round. And I'm assuming it's because some offensive weapons are getting overrated. Because that's what happened last year, where teams just let these really good defensive players drop because they wanted the top offensive players. So I
Yeah,
have a feeling that's going to happen again.
I think it's called draft fatigue. You get a lot of like scouts that they like these players for so long, but then they get tired of it and they want to talk about someone else being the best guy at a position or up in that upper echelon. For example, everyone agreed that Bryce Young was the top quarterback, right? Like we all pretty much understood that up until maybe 2, 3 months ago, probably 2 months ago actually. And then all of a sudden, everyone's saying, "Oh, it's C.J. Stroud. He's got size way better, and he can play in the big moments." We saw that against Georgia in college, whatever reason it is. And they talk about Anthony Richardson being great, all these guys, and then all of a sudden it swaps back to Bryce Young recently. It's like, wait, why were we even putting all these dudes above him? It
I
doesn't
mean,
really
they
make
tried it with
sense.
Lawrence even. They tried it with Trevor,
Yeah, and
where
then
for a
Fields
short
being
period they're like trying to make it sound like the Jaguars weren't going to get him. It's like, what are you doing? Or that they shouldn't get him at least. They should get Fields.
well, the news title sells as well, and they could at least like fake news with that, as in saying like, "Oh, well, Urban Meyer played at Ohio State or coached for Ohio State, and Justin Fields is from there, and he beat Lawrence in the national championship, so they're gonna go get him." And thank God they didn't. But they try to put all this stuff together, and so it's hard like this time of year to know what's real, what's not. It's like we were talking about with the Texans. Like, are they really going to skip out on a quarterback at 2? Is that a decision they're going to make? Because I'm not sure the Texans are going to be that bad next year. Like, I don't think they're going to be great, but I think they're probably going to be like,
That
8th or
team,
ninth in the draft.
and I'm probably saying this because the Chiefs had to go to overtime to beat
Yep.
them, but that team was a little feisty. I mean, legitimately, towards the end of the year, the Texans team was keeping up with big name teams. If they got a quarterback, they could not win the division and probably not make the playoffs, but get close to a winning record after the year they had before. I'd take that.
They're a tough enough team. So I think they should go quarterback if they want to be more competitive this year, but who knows what they do. They also want to build in the trenches and build their identity up. But I don't know. I don't know why I went with them. I just hope none of them get like a Caleb Williams. Because you saw the Titans like overlook Jacksonville for all these years, even when they got Lawrence, and look where they are now. They're in the pits of hell where they belong. And I just don't want the Jaguars to make that same mistake. Not that we have a Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, but yeah, I hope those teams really screw it up. But let's talk. We've got one prospect we could both probably talk about a little bit here. Dalton Kincaid, tight end for the Utah Utes. I almost said for the Jacksonville Jaguars, which would have been incorrect. But a guy that you know a little bit about, watched a little bit on, kind of all over the place with how people feel about him. Because he's
Yeah,
got
he is divisive. It is either people want him or they don't want him to be even close to their team.
yeah, he's when you watch the highlights on him, and even just watch normal film, he looks fantastic as a tight end, and he looks like the kind of tight end that both of our offenses would use because he plays kind of similar to Kelsey. He's got this ridiculous ability to catch the ball. I mean, he catches anything thrown his way. He's a bigger guy, kind of a similar-ish frame. I don't think he's as tall, but sort of the same in those regards. And he's probably best compared to Zach Ertz at tight end. So you would think like Jacksonville would be interested, but there are some injury concerns. The guy who's got hurt a bit. I think at one point he fractured his back. He did get fully
Ugh.
cleared from that, but that's horrifying.
I mean, that's like me trying to hype up Justin Ross still. I mean, it's not as bad. Justin Ross had like a permanent lifelong injury kind of thing. It could have happened.
Yeah. You get
But
concerned with all
an
that.
injury like that is worrying, though.
Now, and that's why he's like a perfect comparison to Zach Ertz because Zach Ertz has had injury issues as well in his
But
NFL career.
he's been consistently good though when he's healthy.
Yeah, he's been one of the better players. He's done good for Arizona, and I think with like Peterson, you saw him keep 2 tight ends around in Philadelphia. It was only after he left that those guys ended up parting ways, and Zach Ertz was traded. Goddard became the main guy. So it wouldn't shock me at all if they make a move like that. I think that would be the dude that they would go after, and I think even for Kansas City, it'd be him or Darnell Washington, because he's a monster. If you taught that man how to receive like as a volume guy at that position, you'd have one of the best tight ends in the league.
It's funny because a lot of fans of other teams I've seen have liked Kincaid better. But when I talk to other Chiefs fans, they are higher on Washington. I don't know why. Not that I'm saying he's bad, but just compared to other fan bases, it sounds like they'd rather have him. But
Don't
for the
you?
Jaguars, I think Kincaid would be great. If you're going for, I would like a defensive player personally, but if they're going for an offensive player, I don't think Kincaid would be pretty. I think it'd be a pretty good move.
Don't you think part of that though, like why they'd be higher on Washington, is because they trust their team more to develop him?
Yeah,
because I feel like the
I mean
ceiling's
that's
just
100%
higher.
why the Chiefs they look at players like completely differently now, knowing that they have the coaches to be able to coach up people and unlock their true potential.
Yeah.
I think Jaguars are in that spot now, though. I think with Doug Peterson, they can go and risk it on players who need a little bit of development. I mean, that's what Trayvon Walker is.
Well, he's got to be great first. I do believe that they've got to at least prove that. Because you also have like Doug Pearson drafting Jalen Rager over Justin Jefferson in Philadelphia. Like there's blunders too. So they've got to prove they can develop the players. Tyson Campbell, I think, is one that they proved it with. Walker Little was more of a risk in terms of the injury concerns and being off the field. Like he came in as a pretty good tackle, I would argue. He's had development, but there was a lot there already. So like Tyson Campbell's kind of the one guy that you can say that on because everyone else already had a lot of talent coming in, or seemed like the floor was pretty high. But I don't know. I think Darnell Washington would have me like legit concerned about the Chiefs, especially with your run
I
game.
and and I know it's a Jaguars thing. It's a this is your show, but I do want to. If it was the Chiefs, I am hoping for tackle. I think yeah, you're going for look at Brady. His whole career had an insanely good offensive line that basically carried him to multiple rings, as long as his defense. So I think if the Chiefs could just guarantee Mahomes' safety for the next 5 years, 10 years, that'd be great. And I think the Jaguars should also focus on that. I do think you need to improve your defense right now, but I think probably like next draft even you should go for more offensive line pieces.
Yeah, and the defense can be improved through free agency though, because you still got guys out there. You've got the one Smoot you want to bring back, and people like Justin Houston on the market. Is the name I always use because he is like probably the most logical guy to add at this point. But there's options there. It's cornerbacks like the one spot where there's not someone available in that regard. You could go after Buda Baker, and I hope they do, but that's still not going to fix outside corner. So they've got to hit a versatile corner in the draft. But the offense, still, they could do a lot there. I mean, guard is important. Osiris Torrance would be great. He was an early favorite of mine, and a favorite of mine for a long time, and I'd still love him at 24. But you got tight end even. You know, you don't know if Evan Ingram's going to be around the past this next year. I mean, the dude talked about wanting to play for Kansas City this offseason. It's like,
That
stop.
sucks.
It does suck, man. You don't get
uh,
it.
is there a proven guard at the Jaguars' next pick? So if they got cornerback first, is there a guard that you would like next?
Um, I think Steve Avila in the second round will be a solid one. I think the issue with his film, if I can recall off the top of my head, he had some issues with like not picking up blocks, which you can coach out of a guy. But he still had pretty good movement skills, was good in the run game, which is where I want them to improve. If you want to take a late swing on guard and get a steal, you go after Andrew Voorhees because he was the number two guy for much of the process, but he hurt himself, tore his ACL. It was a clean tear, I believe, so he might be back before the beginning of the season. But he's going to fall down boards, and that's a Trent Baalke kind of guy right there. Big
That's a
size and
good move.
injured, like he's going to be
The
zooming
Chiefs
into
do that with Trey
binoculars.
Smith. The Chiefs have also done that, and it works. It is actually smart,
Yeah,
especially since you're playing the long game. I mean, the Jaguars can win right now. You might as well get someone that you can work with and wait for him to get fully healthy.
yeah, he would be a pretty fun pick. I'd feel very good about our offensive line then. I think the best pick though for the offensive line, if that's the route they want to go, and I'd 100% be on board with it, is getting a guy like Osiris Torrance because there's even people talking about him playing tackle in the NFL, which is crazy because he never played tackle in college. But you saw him. He played with the Raging Cajuns in Louisiana. Great name for a football team, by the way. I absolutely love it. but he played really well against a lower level of talent. They moved to Florida this last year, which you already know is like a reason why Jacksonville wants to go draft him because he's from Florida. They've done this all the time, even with Buss. They've done it with great players like Jawan Taylor or Fred Taylor. I guess they're all Taylors. I just put that together in my head. So you've
That's
got
really where Juwan Taylor betrayed you guys then.
yeah, we need Osiris Torrance to like make Taylor his middle name officially, so he doesn't have bust if we go pick him, something like that. But Torrance, like when he went to Florida, he played at such a good level still, and he did against great players. You can watch his film against Jalen Carter, and he went toe to toe with him. He was not perfect. He didn't like just dominate him, but you saw snaps where Jalen Carter would get the best of him. Torrance would push him back, or they'd just get into a stalemate on the offensive line. And so I really like him. I think he would be a great pick because he not only fixes your weakest spot on the offensive line, but he also fixes the swing tackle issue, and you can have Barch start at left guard, he was injured for all our games last year, so you're not going to be familiar with him. He went down like week 5, I think. But Barch would be able to start at guard, and you move Torrance out to tackle. Like that's a move you can make, and he's only got to play right tackle because both your starting tackles already can play on the left side, and Cam Robinson and I almost said Jawan Taylor. That's not true anymore, but Walker Little.
So you would go with improve the offensive line first round and then secondary second round.
I don't know.
Which would you prefer?
I would, in all honesty,
Jaguars are on the clock. Any player you want's available. That's reasonable.
I would be happy with a heck of a lot of things. Like there are so many routes they can go that I could almost call a perfect pick. If I had it my way, right now at this moment, I would send an offer for Buda Baker. He would be a Jacksonville Jaguar. So that would start there. I'd be willing to go up as high as a second if they were able
Already
to
fans are crying for your promotion.
No, they probably hate me over that. Or they love it. It's one way or the other. No one's ever like, I don't care. It's always extreme opinions. It's the NFL. But Buda Baker, I'd bring him in so that I could look at a cornerback to just back up the slot or maybe even start there if you want to rotate your safeties. You don't got to worry about that in the draft. And so then you can take the best player. You're not forced into like a Branch or a Banks if you don't feel like those are the best guys on the board. And I would have to choose between Dalton Kincaid and Osiris Torrance at that point. And
you're that high on Kincaid.
Yeah. He was at one point 13th on my board. He's not that high now. He's still in the teens, but he's a freaking good player. I mean, he might go 15 to Green Bay. And you can see I'm dodging the answer as I just monologue.
No, it's pretty good. That's a pretty good dodge.
Either one of them, Dalton Kincaid, Osiris Torrance, but if they don't get Buda Baker, then yeah, you probably got to go Deontay Banks or Brian Branch.
So, why has DeJuan Jones dropped?
I think that's partially because of the Darnell Wright hype. That's a part of it, and then also he hasn't really done much recently, and so it's the recency bias. Been out there. Yeah, because like when he
performed, I mean, that sounds good to me. Let's have him drop in the draft.
That dude was going like 16 to the Commanders.
Yeah, he has dropped a lot.
Right now,
he's not even. I looked at one. He wasn't even in the first round. I was trying to find his name. He was in the second round.
He's not a first round projection now.
Yeah,
I mean, could trade back out of the first round, which you won't do, but you could do that and still land him. So I think with him, like, there are concerns on tape. You loved what you saw at the Senior Bowl with him against really good talent too.
Like, he stole
the show. He is a massive guy.
Like, and I mean, that's a great thing, and it's a bad thing.
Yeah, because
you got to make sure he's physically fit.
It's like he's 380 almost, right?
Dude's a monster.
He's a monster for tackle. I mean, that's like all freaking. Well, a lot of it's muscle.
No, yeah, he moves pretty quick.
He moves
for
like
as big as he is.
330, 340.
He moves faster than Orlando Brown.
Of course, you would say that he's not on your team anymore. But like he moves like he's 330, 340, and that kind of weight isn't great for that position. Like as far as movement, like it starts to get onto the high end. So he has fantastic like strength. If he locks onto a guy, they're not going to go anywhere. But he's not going to move that amazing.
Yeah,
So
it's
it depends
speedy
on
edge rushers
like
could get around him.
yeah, what kind of offense do you like operate? Do you have your tackles move out a lot, or do they kind of stay stationary? Like, what do you know anything on that? Because I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know a ton for Jacksonville on those
For
kinds of
right
details.
tackle, the Chiefs would still have depth there if they were going to do it, and they do this a good amount, probably more than a lot of other teams. They'll swap out offensive line players just multiple times in a drive. So if they thought that they were going to do a screen pass, I mean, I actually seen footage with Dwan Jones doing really good at screen passes. But if they thought there's a scenario where they would want someone faster, they could swap in someone. So I could see him fitting in on the Chiefs. But so the Jaguars don't need a tackle.
They don't. The best thing they could do if they're going to hit offensive line early is get someone who's a high end guard that can move out to tackle, which is what Torrance is. Or you could
They're
say
looking for
Darnell Wright.
versatility.
Yeah, then that's the big thing they said this offseason is getting versatility. I want to get a fun question in here before we wrap this up because we got a comment about some of the players that would be nice at 24. We got Nolan Smith, Deontay Banks, and Quinton Johnston. Do you think if Quinton Johnston is sitting there at 24, which he's another one of these guys who has just fallen off a cliff for God knows what reason?
The hype for other star players.
Would you pick up Quinton Johnston at 24 over these other guys if you're Jacksonville? I would say no personally because I like other receivers more. Like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jordan Addison, although they may be more of slot guys.
I don't know. I feel like you could have him with Calvin Ridley. I kind of like that.
It's a high ceiling move for sure, and you get a 5-year deal with him because you pay the 5th-year option, which will be less than what you pay him on market.
That's a big name. I actually like that.
I can get on board. I like if it happened.
Yeah, I assume you wouldn't be angry
for me. But if we don't pick him, I'm like, yeah. Well, why would we pick a receiver? We have Zay Jones. Like,
as a Chiefs fan, I'd justify Juju for a year.
Well, for you guys, if you skip Quinton Johnston, which I don't think would happen,
no,
just feel like, well, we got Kadarius Toney. I mean, why do we need this guy? Like, we've got our guy.
Well, if we got Dwan Jones, I'm fine. That's all I want.
Yeah, for sure.
We didn't need Quinton Johnston.
So if you had all your guys on the board at 31, who are you selecting? Is it Dwan Jones? Dwan Jones, okay.
I want the right tackle for Mahomes' future.
Yeah. Before we end this, I'll throw out my guy for you guys. And I've said this before on like social media or just talking to you, but I think you guys should go after Zay Flowers because you need a receiver. And I think you can get a tackle somehow in like the second round. Like you can trade picks to move up if you need to. But Zay Flowers just feels like a really good receiver for Kansas City. Like,
what's the farthest he'll drop?
End of the first round. Because I don't think he's going past you. I mean, he was.
If he's there, I'm not going to be mad.
Guy, and he moved up into the first. He is a hard worker. Like, you saw that before, I think it was before the combine. Dude put on like 13 pounds of muscle. It was like a month or something. I think I've got the wrong amount of time, but it was a short period of time. I mean, he is just awesome in that regard. Like, I wouldn't even be mad if the Jaguars got him. I would be confused, but I would take it. You know, we need more Zays on this team. We got all the Jones last year. We need the Zays.
Gosh.
But Zay Flowers, like, I can see him in a Chiefs uniform for one. I can see him being great there. He's the kind of hard worker you're going to want. He's going to have slot and outside flexibility, I would argue. And the guy's shifty. I mean, he is a really shifty receiver. It would be fun to watch him with Patrick Mahomes. It's like if you guys got him, that would probably be the pick I'd be the most concerned about in the first round.
I think
because you can cover up Lucas Niang.
If I was going for him, I would get I'd get Jones, and then if he's there at that pick, and Chiefs still get Jones, then you trade up and then also try to get him.
which you'd have to move up to the top of the second.
Yeah, you'd have to go up far. But I mean, I think you and I have talked about this, but I'm higher on Kadarius Toney. I'm high enough on him where I think the Chiefs can make it. I would not be opposed to getting a wide receiver, but I want Mahomes' security guaranteed.
Yeah, I get that 100%. You don't want him going down, but at the same time, if he goes down, he's probably just going to go win the Super Bowl the next year on a revenge tour.
So far, every time he's had like a serious injury, he's went on and won the Super Bowl. So
yep, it almost feels fixed or something, you know. He'd be my little conspiracy theorist here. That's what I am. But yeah, I know Jaguars are having interviews right now with some players. You guys are definitely going to want to watch that. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. But I want to thank you for coming on. There's such short notice, so I do really appreciate that. I'm gonna have to buy you lunch sometime or something, maybe when we go down the draft. But yeah,
yep, I'm excited for the draft.
It's gonna be great.
I'm ready.
As long as Brian Brissy and Keely Ringo aren't the picks.
I've been counting down the days. I'm starting to get hyped.
Yeah, it's about here. I just want to know where the team's gonna be great at. I want to see where they're going to improve the most, where they feel like the focus is. I want to see a great player in Jacksonville, so totally get it. And you guys could have some fun picks at the end of the draft. And I'll feel that way until I get insulted by the first random drunk Chiefs fan, and I pretend the entire fan base is like that.
It'll probably be a Titans fan. I'd be willing to bet on that.
I see Titans fans there. I hope so bad. If you guys are going out to the draft, let me know. We'll be out there. We live around this area, so we get to enjoy this 1 year. So with that said, I appreciate y'all joining us for the podcast today. Thank you, Griffin, for coming on. And guys, go enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy this last week before the NFL draft. So see y'all later.